about the foreign fighter phenomenon or foreign terrorist fighter phenomenon. I was online on Twitter and Facebook in 2012, really when the Arab Spring had started, the Syrian war had already begun, and started to see individuals from Western countries going over to Syria, going over to Iraq, talking about going over, and individuals who had reached there and then were talking back to those individuals who had not yet reached there, who were trying to go, thinking of going, and was engaging them, micro-engaging them, talking to them, trolling them, arguing against them, trying to dislodge their religious narrative on which they had built a lot of their motivations, and the grievance narrative from which they were drawing inspiration. And I see two things here. I mean, there's the hard aspect of fighting ISIS in Iraq and or Syria, and the soft aspect of what you're going to do online, in the public, even in the battle space, in the sense of influence activities or psychological operations, however you want to frame it. And looking at the hard aspect of it, we are seeing, I mean, speaking with a lot of military agencies and military intelligence agencies, it's a problem. It's a problem in terms of borders and law enforcement and laws that may not yet be in place to deal with these individuals. I mean, now we start to see, prevention laws. I mean, you can't go. They can take your passport. They can interdict you in those ways. The border crossing issue remains the big gap and the big problem, and that's something that law enforcement, especially in those areas in Europe, you can see what's happening. I mean, there really is the refugee situation is being exploited by ISIS. I mean, I saw them talk about this 2 years ago. I saw, foreign fighters from Belgium, Europe, other countries in Europe talk about how they were going to go back and commit attacks. And this was 2 years ago. So now we're playing catch up, even on the hard side. On the soft side of things, the counter messaging that I was doing, or the micro engagement that I was doing, this is just one side of the solution. And who's going to do it? How are you going to scale it? These are issues that are being asked by everyone nowadays. A quick response, I would say, a quick answer, is to support NGOs, Muslim organizations in particular, to teach the young people that they have a sense of duty and a sense of responsibility to their religion, to defend their religion against these people who are spending countless hours going out of their way to depict Islam in the most horrible way possible. So what you can do is convince these young people, imbue them with a sense of power and a sense of duty to the religion, and they will automatically go online and counter the speech of these individuals, argue with them, troll with them. What they're going to need is a little bit of professional training, maybe even some encryption software, how to hide your identity, how to be safe while you're doing all that. But it can be done. It doesn't require, that much financial support. My domestic security intelligence experience begins in 2004. I had just returned back from Syria after spending 2 years there studying Arabic and Islamic studies, and effectively became a walk-in for the Canadian Security Intelligence Service. Began undercover operations, infiltrating groups, individuals, and providing feedback on who's a threat to Canadian security and who isn't a threat. In that time, I, of course, came across many individuals and many profiles, so to speak, if one can even give a profile, of individuals who are involved in this jihadist narrative, in this jihadist culture. Now, I'm thinking back even to the early 90s when the internet had just begun. I remember even in the mid-90s, 92, 93, I was on the various chat forums. And in 1995, of course, I had my radicalization moment in Pakistan when I met the Taliban. And but from 95 to 2001, when I was, very radicalized, very extremist, jihadi Salafi mindset, you saw the changes in that time. You saw first with Yahoo Chat, or Yahoo Chat was the particular chat forum I was in, but from chat forums to then, person-to-person networks, to then CDs, so Russian Hell 1, 2, and 3. These were some of the publications available, or CD publications that were available at the time, and it showed really the Chechens fighting the Russians. I saw my first beheading video, and then of course you get to 2001, the 9/11 attacks, then 2003, the Iraq invasion, then of course by 2006 you have Zarqawi, who's the leader in Iraq, Al-Qaeda leader in Iraq, who really proliferated with the beheading videos and mass shootings in the back of the head, the sorts of things that we see ISIS doing now. So I look at my domestic experience from those days, from the 2000s, from 2004 to 2006 when I was operational, and you look 10 years later and what we're looking at. So I've already described that from the early 90s when the internet was just starting, this proliferation of social network platforms has really, really exacerbated and aggravated the problem. Because the amount of information, the type of information, the quality of information is so much greater now. And it's so, the volume of it is so great. So what we're seeing now is a logical extension, really, of what I was doing in 2005. 10 years since, you've had a lot more homegrown plots. Now we're looking at individuals, who are returning back from Syria. We're also looking at people who are still in place in their countries, who have not yet been able to leave. Their passports have been revoked for whatever reason. Their parents are watching them a little more closely, and who can't go, but who feel that they've missed out by not going, and consider themselves to have a role to play here in the domestic context. So the mechanisms remain the same. Online network building, the bubble environment in which a person can increasingly become extreme in shorter periods of time. This is something that we're seeing a lot more now than we did before in the mid-2000s. Speaking of future trends and the way forward, and if past experiences are an indicator, then we should probably look at a number of things. Number one, the advancement in technology and how that will make it easier for individuals to communicate, to pass tactical information, planning. These are the sorts of things that will proliferate, and it's already happening in the form of various encryption software that's being exploited by foreign terrorist fighters and ISIS planners, wherever they may be. Number two, the person-to-person networkings will still remain the same. The value of human contact and value of human information it will remain the same. I mean, we're learning even now that even with encryption, and they still like to call themselves by phone. So human interactions will continue to take place and will be central to these networks. Moreover, if you look at the tactics that they will begin to use, so the large-scale spectacle attacks, I mean, they will continue to be ideal. They would love to see those kinds of attacks, but you will probably start to see more what we call, soft targets being targeted. Places where, they see that there aren't security guards, malls, sports games. These mass attacks where mass amounts of people are gathered, that's going to be the targeting, I think, of the future. They're easy targets. The impact of it psychologically, physically is very great, and it achieves the objectives that they need, which is fear and division. In terms of the way forward, what we can do, human intelligence will remain a core competency and a core business of security intelligence. It's always easier said than done. I mean, in order to encourage people from the communities to come forward, to retain them, to make them feel like they're actually doing something good, it will be very important for source development units to understand this and to exploit this appropriately. so that they don't deal with insider threats, so they don't deal with individuals who second guess that they're working with what they might perceive to be the kuffar enemy. These kinds of things need to be inculcated in source developers from the very beginning. In terms of technology, look, penetration into networks is going to be needed, whether it's done by government agencies or whether it's done by NGOs or other corporations or organizations. It will be needed. These are people who know how to hide, who want to hide, and the best disinfectant is always sunlight.